Good evening, Stonegate audience. I hope everyone out there is doing great. I know that I have had a busy week. I was very busy all last weekend, so that's why I didn't make a video there. So this video is probably about a week overdue, but there was some really good information that I picked up at NoteExpo 2019, which was the first weekend of November. It was held in Dallas, Texas. And I think they probably had about 200, maybe 250 people there, just a rough estimate. If I'm off a little bit, hopefully no one gets too upset about that. It was a pretty good event. Always good to go to these things, really for the networking as much as anything. I was able to catch up with a lot of my note investor friends, and it had been a little time since I'd been able to do that. One of the tips I learned some time ago is to always try to go in with something of a game plan. Try to pick out a couple people you really want to talk to about one thing or another, and just try to make sure you get that done. Weekends go very, very quickly. Time goes by very, very fast. So if you don't make a plan, things will just happen to you. So, couple things, three people in particular really caught my eye, and there was actually more than this, but for time-wise, I thought it'd be more effective just to go into these three tonight, and then maybe do the other ones next weekend. So the first one was someone by the name of Tracy Rui. She and I think it's probably her husband, I could be wrong. They run Note Investor, and the total dollar number of seller financed homes in 2018, this really caught me by surprise, just how big it was. 25 billion, almost 26 billion dollars. That is correct. That's billion with a B for Bill. Yeah, I like that. So the point is, a lot of people think, this just doesn't happen all that much. All I've ever done is bought and sold homes for cash, usually with bank financing. But there's a whole nother world that's going on that people just are not aware of. So the market for that is so much bigger than, I could have possibly thought myself. I would have probably guessed it was less than half that if someone had really asked me to guess. And then one other little tidbit there caught my eye with Tracy. The number of notes increased by 2% from 2017, but the total dollar value of those notes went up by 20%. So what went on, the little alarm bells that went down in my head was, these aren't just really cheap houses, okay? That means that the dollar figure, the worth of those houses on average is increasing. To me, at least, the stereotype is, well, those are houses that no one else wants. No, it's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of people out there that maybe would make really good borrowers, but for one reason or another, they're not deemed very good risks of getting a mortgage by a bank. And so those are the type of people that will buy a seller financed home. And then the other thing there is just 4 states make up about half of the seller financed houses in the country, actually. Those states are Texas, Florida, California, and Arizona. Texas was by far the leader with, I believe it was right around 23, 24%, something like that. And then the other ones are around 10 or just a little bit less than that, each of them. So again, just 4 states make up almost half of it. I thought that was interesting also. Of course, Texas and California are by far the biggest states, but there's Florida and Arizona rounding out the top 4 there. So that was what I got from Tracy Rui. Again, she did a great presentation, packed with some really good information. I got to give a shout out to my fellow Buckeye, Jeff Watson, who is an attorney up in Northeast Ohio, where I am from originally. And he talked a little bit about just the current environment that we're in right now. The fact that we have still low interest rates, and those interest rates are actually decreasing right now. So what that means overall for a lot of investors is they're chasing fewer deals, and those deals are a little bit thinner. They might not make as much money as they used to in the past. So what that means is that they're having more competition. And then what that means also is that the market is becoming very ripe for fraud. Fraud if someone, is dishonest in their dealings with you. The one quote that he said, I had heard it before, but it's nice to hear him repeat it. The return of capital is more important than the return on capital. So what that means is if you loan someone, I don't know, $50,000, okay? Maybe one of them is promising a 20% return. You think, oh, well, this is great. I'm going to make all this money. And then someone else is maybe not offering as much. Maybe they're offering 8%. But you know for sure that you're going to get your money back, or you have much more confidence. That second option is probably your better bet. I'd rather have my 50,000 back, even if I didn't make a penny on it. At least I got my principal back, rather than worrying about possibly losing my whole investment. So the great sum of that one then is just to make sure you check people out. Part of the reason this really caught my eye, I was talking with someone there, someone I hadn't met, but he had watched me doing these type of videos. And he said, well, Bill, I don't know why everybody just can't do it like you do. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're honest, and you tell people the good and the bad of things, and you just seem like you're a really good guy to do business with. Now, again, keep in mind, I had just met this person, okay? He had just seen me do videos, and don't get me wrong, it was very flattering, but at the same time, I said, how do you know that, though? And he's like, well, I can just tell. I've watched you. And I was like, okay, so I can go on video and I can speak to the camera and that type of thing. That does not mean for certain that I am trustworthy, that I don't have, that I have not done things wrong. In my case, it is true. I've never been arrested or anything like that. People are welcome to check out my background. But you should do that for everybody, for anybody you're interested in investing with or doing business with or something along those lines. Now, here I'm talking more so about some type of an investment. You're not going to check out the person that's ringing up your groceries at the grocery store or something like that. But I hope that makes sense. I mean, you do want to just be careful out there. There are fraudulent people out there, and you just want to, again, make sure you check people out. If you have to, hire a private investigator, or maybe you can run your own background check. There are ways to do that online. Just don't go into something, without really checking it out. And then the last one here I wanted to talk about by a friend of mine. This won the Deal of the Year, the non-performing note Deal of the Year. My friend's name is Al Curie, and he was originally born in another country. He said one of the happiest days of his life was when he became a U.S. citizen. It's just good to see someone respect that and show appreciation for that. He's a great addition to the country as far as I'm concerned. So he bought a non-performing note in Waldo, Arkansas. The price of the note was $13,000. So this was a non-performing note, which means essentially the person that had borrowed the money was not paying anything on it. There's at least a little bit of a gamble when you buy these things, but you have kind of confidence in yourself that you can work that out, that you can figure this out. In this case, the home was delinquent and abandoned. It had really high weeds, that type of thing. And Al, being a stand-up type of guy that he is, he tried to actually work really hard to find someone to go out to the property and clean it up and get it ready to sell and that type of thing. And Waldo, Arkansas is a pretty small town. He ended up talking with the mayor of the town and was just kind of honest with her and said, look, I'm sorry, I'm trying really hard, but I'm not having much luck being able to get someone out to the house. So again, it being a small town, the mayor of the town actually talked with him and worked with him and was able to locate some folks to go out and get the house fixed up, mow the yard, that type of thing for a very reasonable cost. Not only that, the mayor of the town actually ended up referring a homeowner prospect to him. So this was a really valuable thing that, might not have happened if Al, hadn't been responsible and proactive and trying to take care of the house. He might have never spoken with the mayor, okay? In which case he wouldn't have been able to get someone out to the property, and he probably, he would have eventually, but it was just kind of a one-stop shop, but he didn't know that outcome when he started to talk to the mayor. So she referred him to a single mother who apparently was getting out of a bad situation. I don't remember if she had 1 or 2 children or whichever, but that's really not all that important. He essentially took a chance on her. He kind of said, there's got to be a reason that this is working out the way it is. If I remember correctly, I don't think her credit was that great or something. He did take somewhat of a chance on her. So he sold the house to her with seller financing for a total of $48,000 over 30 years. Okay. Now, there is time value of money, and if this note goes all the way to 30 years, first of all, that would be unlikely. But even if it does, okay, he will have probably made well more than a $100,000 profit on this house. And again, look at what was and what is now, okay? When he took possession of this house, there was an abandoned delinquent yard there, okay? High grass, it was a nuisance, okay? Probably not a house that, the neighbors liked seeing and dealing with all the time. So he took possession of this. He was able to work with people, again, by being a decent person, a responsible person. He was able to get it rehabbed, and now he has a young family in there. And, if this mom was getting out of a bad situation and now she has her house, it's at a payment that she can afford, is there a good chance she's going to do everything she can to try to stay in that house and make sure that Al gets his mortgage payment? There's a pretty good chance of that. So the point is, and part of the reason I like note investing, you can do well and you can treat people well. Okay, the stereotype is, well, all those real estate investors, they're trying to take advantage of people. Many, many, many times that is not the case. I can't say all, but, I've met enough now that there's an awful lot of good people out there that are trying to do right by people and treat them right. So that was the third thing of NoteExpo that really caught my eye, and my hat's off to Al. He really took a situation and made some good things happen from that. And that is part of what the country's all about. So that is great. Chris 70 had a comment here. People do extensive research on a tenant paying $600 a month for a year of rent, but will give someone $50,000 with no checks. Yes, Chris 70, a smart guy, is exactly correct. And he has talked about this and said this also. Again, you just want to check someone out before you were to invest any money with them. That goes for me, that goes for Chris, that really goes for anybody. And thank you for that contribution, Chris. So that should do it for tonight. Thank you, everybody that joined in here. If anyone has any other comments or questions, make sure to put it in the comment box, and I will make sure to contribute there when I can. Otherwise, that was my 3 big nuggets from NoteExpo. I actually learned quite a bit more about selling, but I already filled up my board with just this. And I really wanted to give the selling portion its due respect. So I'm not sure if I'll cover that next week or another time, but some really good things. The 2 hints I will give you. Number 1, if you're trying to sell somewhat to someone, there's a 66% chance you are doing it wrong. That was one of the lessons I learned from one of the presentations. And the second one was, You know, sometimes in order to close a sale, the best thing you can do is try to talk someone out of it. And that's the example was pretty eye-opening to me. But again, we're going to get into that another time. Thank you very much to everybody that tuned in tonight. And until next time, that is how you climb the hill. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.